Okay, folks, let's go ahead and let's get started today. Spill my drink on myself. That's always a great way to start off a stream, I would say. Hope you guys are doing really good today. Today we're going to talk about dialogue, and I'm actually going to do a little bit of live writing for you. So I'll have a nice open document here. This is in final draft. So rather than showing something in, say, a novel format, we're going to look at it in a screenplay format. That's going to get all of the questions about prose kind of out of the way. I also get to live demo this software if you don't know anything about Final Draft Pro. And actually, I think it's just called Final Draft, not Final Draft Pro. I don't know why I added the Pro in there. No idea. But if you've never seen this software, we'll get a chance to take a look at this software and really see what it does. And we can focus just on the dialogue, which is going to be what you're going to focus on for things like a screenplay, for a comic script, for plays. I don't know. Most things, actually. So most things, anything that's not a novel, you're not going to be looking so much at prose. It's not that there's not a prose element to screenwriting. There actually is. There's also a prose element to writing comic scripts. However, the main focus is on the dialogue because the dialogue is up there. It's front and center. So that's the main thing we're going to be looking at. Hope you guys are doing great today. Let me start with a little bit of site news for you while I get the chat kind of popped out here to where I'm not having to look constantly over to the other monitor, figure out what's going on. So hope you guys are doing great. So first of all, I'm going to ask this week, I want you guys to very much consider what you're actually saying in chat. So last week's stream got demonetized. I lost the super chat money. I think for not all of the super chats. I think the ones that went out before the stream, that money still got to me. But basically, the whole thing got demonetized. I didn't get put into limited state, but you can't access the chat. So you can't access the live chat. I can't look at it either. That's not a decision that I made. That's something that YouTube did based on what was going on in the chat. There was at least one person that had to get banned from the channel because of spamming and flooding and things like that. And so just keep in mind that anything that you say on YouTube, it's not just on me. It's not just my language, but the language that happens in a live chat, YouTube uses to determine whether or not they need to target that channel for, demonetizing the video or community guidelines, strikes, things like that. The chat is used by the AI because words are very easy to compute. It's more difficult to figure out what somebody means when they're saying things because speech to text is still not that good. But the chat is really easy. So last week's stream got basically nuked because of what was in the live chat. So we can't look at the live chat. It's demonetized, which really sucks because the live chat was where everything was really happening. The live chat was lots of discussion. It was a really good stream once I got kind of the chat cleared up. It was a really good stream the second half, I would say. So unfortunately, we're losing out on that. So we might do another one with prose just so that there's a chance for more people to interact and do the chat. But today we're going to focus on dialogue. And the dialogue focus shouldn't be too difficult to comprehend as far as what we're doing. That's the main thing. Other thing, no live stream next week. So next week, no Writestream. That's because I'll be out of town. However, while I'm out of town, there is something actually happening. So on Tuesday, Voices of the Void is actually going to go live on Amazon. Now, I wanted to actually push this back because I forgot about this trip that my wife planned for next week. But I forgot to do it within a 10-day window. So for those of you who are publishing on Amazon, you can't, within 10 days of the launch of a book, push back the launch date of a book. So it's coming out on Tuesday. If you haven't pre-ordered it, you could pre-order it now. I'll put a link in the chat right now. If, of course, most of you have it for free. If you don't have it, you can just join my mailing list, and it'll be in the mailing list. So if you want to give me 99 cents, you can pre-order it. It's 99 cents. It's also going to be on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you can just read it on Kindle Unlimited, and that'll be good too. The paperback will be live in the next few days. So I have to get basically in the next few days, I have to scramble to get the manuscript completely ready to go out. So that means making sure the ebook looks okay, because I've done basic ebook formatting so it works, but I haven't made sure that it looks okay on the Kindle platform. So I'll have to do that. I'll have to format the paperback, get that ready. Luckily, I've already done most of the work. I already have the interior formatting done for the paperback. I already have the cover designed, including the paperback cover. So there's not that much work to do. It's just going to be like a lot of little details. And then, of course, you have to deal with mailing lists. There's a whole thing that goes into launching something, and this isn't a launch I'm very serious about, because I don't know if people are actually going to like this. It's in a genre that actually doesn't exist on the Kindle platform. There is no science fiction horror genre. It's a genre that literally doesn't exist. So I'm writing, and that's saying something, because there's like a million little genres on Kindle, and there's no sci-fi horror. There's science fiction, there's horror, there's all kinds of other things with horror, like American horror, so it'll be in the American horror genre, but there's no sci-fi horror. I don't know why that is. Seems like it'd be a popular genre. Maybe it's like an empty genre and no one actually reads it, and like no one will buy any books. I don't know. It's just a story I wanted to write. I've gotten a lot of feedback from that lately, which I really do appreciate. I've been very, very thankful for that, especially finding, little inconsistencies or typos that I didn't catch because of a million different little reasons. So that's going to happen on Tuesday. You can pre-order it if you want. I'm very appreciative if people do pre-order it. It's the best thing to help me out. Frequently, people ask me if they can buy my books not on Amazon. The answer is yes. All my books, other than this one, are available on other platforms. None of them are on Kindle Unlimited. There's reasons for that. And the main reason is if somebody reads the book cover to cover, I make less money than if they have bought the book. And the thing is, the $0 price point for Kindle Unlimited subscribers doesn't cost me anything. People with KU will still buy a 99-cent book and not think very much about it. And then they may read it or not, So you end up making more money on most things without it. But I thought I'd put this in KU just because $0 entry point, maybe it'll work. Will it work on my Nook? The answer is yeah, but you'll have to download the file and convert it. Now, if you are on my mailing list, you'll get it for free in whatever format. EPUB, which is Nook, EPUB, which is Nook, and Mobi, which is Amazon and other readers. So yeah, it'll work on your Nook if you get on my mailing list and get it from that. Get the pre-release version. It will actually do it. Jonathan Nichols says, I don't get the light fixtures reference. I'm not sure what he's talking about. My light fixtures? I don't know. How does Rageaholic manage to stay monetized? I don't know. I actually don't know. So this is a weird thing, right? Like, there's channels that get banned or they get permanently removed from YouTube for community guidelines violations, and all they are is clips of other channels which have not been removed for community guideline strikes. So one of them was, I think someone told me, like, yeah, there was a channel that all it did was show Owen Benjamin clips, and it got banned. Whereas Owen Benjamin saying those things is not banned. And he got demonetized. Owen Benjamin got demonetized, I think, but he didn't get banned. So I don't know how YouTube decides this kind of stuff. My thought is, if you're a smaller YouTuber, like if your sub count is under a certain amount, you pretty much have no recourse, and so you're on thin ice. Once you have a large sub count, you can actually talk to someone at YouTube, but there's a chance you'll get removed if you are like on the wrong side of the political spectrum. You can just get permanently removed. So it's a thing. I'll probably get banned in 2020. 2020 is when I'm expecting I'll get probably demonetized and then banned from YouTube, probably in rapid succession, as they tighten like what community guidelines are, to the point where like me having any kind of logical discussion is a community guidelines violation, and then I'll be gone. And then of course, like the more attention you garner, the more of a target you are for, mass flagging campaigns and things like that. Why does your chat get demonetized but EVS gets super chat? Oh, that's the light fixtures thing, yeah. Quoting historical European World War II figures and referencing light fixture coverings, and nothing happens. So you have to think a little bit deeper if you don't get the light fixture reference. But yeah, so people are quoting Hitler stuff and he's just saying it, I guess. I don't know. I haven't watched his channel in well over a year. I haven't paid any attention to him. He's not my sphere of influence. Has the growth of cinema and TV helped make dialogue more naturalistic in general? No. So if there was no cinema or TV, naturalistic dialogue would be less popular. I'm going to say no. We've always had live dialogue in the form of plays. Now, if you're talking about naturalistic, what you're really talking about is a competition of styles between what's called a realism and an idealism. So an idealist style in literature includes a bunch of different things, but it also includes dialogue. People speak not in a way that's not naturalistic, but in a way that's composed. Then in a way that's very clear. So the heroes don't stammer, they don't say crass things. They speak as if the speech is always composed. That's a trait of it. So J.R.R. Tolkien really wrote in a very idealistic style. It was really kind of neo-romantic. Except the hobbits tend to talk in a more realist style. Realism would have things like cussing, foul language. It would have you might have scenes where people urinate. They talk about bodily functions, the things that people normally talk about. So you don't have to do either one of those. And as I get into dialogue, we could talk about some specifics with that. But that's the general thing. So dialogue hasn't become more naturalistic. There was naturalistic dialogue in the 19th century. I think what's happened is that maybe as TV and cinema grow, there's less focus on, or there's less tolerance of styles other than method acting and realism, right? So everybody does method acting now, not knowing there's other kinds of acting, and then realism is very popular. Excuse me for a second. A little bit stuffy. Okay. Have you read any of Robert E. Howard's horror? I think so, yes. I've read a lot of Robert E. Howard. Some people think, Owen Benjamin is a useful figure for YouTube. Some people think Owen Benjamin's a plant because he hasn't gotten kicked off, that he's there to make the people that follow him look crazy. Bob, why would I get on your mailing list if it means I'm not buying things and therefore not supporting you? You can still buy them. You can still buy them even if you have them. You can still buy the paperback if you want it. That kind of stuff. Have you talked about hating sand yet? I hate sand. On the topic of writing prose, because last stream died, have you ever read any of Michael Kirkbride's Elder Scrolls stuff? I have not. Why do you think you'll get banned? Your channel isn't all that political comparatively. Well, it doesn't matter that it's not all that political now. You have to think about what's going to be political in 2020, and the answer is me. I'm not apolitical. I never have been, but there's been in YouTube a slow narrowing of what's acceptable, but also a shift of what's acceptable on the political spectrum really far to the left. So people stay monetized who just advocate for violence against, Europeans and white people. And people get banned for saying that, race exists or something like that, right? There's almost no telling when you'll get banned other than the more effective your message, the more likely you are to get banned. That's what I think it is. So yeah, things are going to shift. Look for lots of people to get kicked off the platform in 2020 leading up to the election. YouTube does not want Donald Trump to win another election, or the people who work at YouTube do not want Donald Trump to win another election. So look for lots and lots of bans to happen. Now, if they do it, they're doing it slowly. You have to know something about this strategy, and this might get the video, this almost certainly will get this particular live stream demonetized because I'm talking about it, but here we go. Here's what you got to know is that they do this slowly. It's a strategic thing. You do it slowly so that people don't just abandon the platform altogether. And I'm broadcasting on YouTube now because YouTube is still where all the people are. If you did it all at once, you might have an exodus that could be more than a trickle away. So you know, there's a lesson to be learned from people leaving MySpace and going to Facebook. People left MySpace and went to Facebook because Facebook was a better product. And it didn't happen all at once. People trickled over, and they weren't going to use multiple social media sites to the point where, bam, just everyone went over to Facebook. And then MySpace was dead. Because people were really kind of repurposing MySpace to begin with. They were really doing MySpace a little bit differently than how it was originally designed. So that can still happen, but if a lot of people leave at once, then all of a sudden that gives a big boom to a competitor, because all of those content creators are going to go there. All the people who like to watch those content creators are going to go there. You know, BitChute still needs to work on a lot of things. I like BitChute. Still needs to work on how it presents videos to you. People are so used to opening up YouTube and just seeing all the videos they want to see, and being able to look at all their subscriptions and see who's uploaded new videos. To go on BitChute, it's really hard to know. You know, they have a good email system, but the site itself isn't there yet. It's not as good as YouTube, to where you can go on and say, you know, Varg has a new video, I'm going to watch the new Varg video. But like anyone that wants to watch Varg Vikernes or InfoWars or something like that, they're already going to be on BitChute. And the more time they spend on BitChute, the less they are on YouTube until it withers away. Like, I barely spend time on Facebook. I only really go on Facebook to respond to messages from people who are watching the stream or watching the shows. That's it. So that's it. Yeah. Are you familiar with the Overton window? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, same concept, right? So the Overton window is this window of what's acceptable. So this is the thing about when people say, I'm apolitical, or we need to get politics out of games, or get politics out of comics, or something like that. I'm like, no, when people say they're apolitical, what they really mean is their politics are within the Overton window. I don't know anyone who, you know, anything you do is a political statement compared to something else. It's all comparative. Just like how there's nothing called tall. Tall doesn't exist. Tall is a comparison to something which is not as tall. So if you write a comic and it doesn't feature black people sitting on the back of the bus, that's a political statement. Or it would have been in the 60s, right? So in the early 60s or the 50s, you had Jim Crow laws segregating black people and white people in the United States. So having art which featured a future where that wasn't the case, that was a significant political statement. Now it's just, it would be weird to write something where they were segregated. But the fact that you're writing something where they're not doesn't mean it's apolitical. It just means it's well within what's an acceptable political view. I'll add your other platforms of this. I'm one of the YouTube people just because I'm lazy. Same. You know, I spend more time on BitChute, but it's hard for me to go through and find all the channels I want to watch. So I tend to go on BitChute just when I want to like listen to Varg talk for a while, rather than, you know, go on there as like my default video site. And it's just because YouTube has so many more years at the game and bigger infrastructure. It works better on a technical level than BitChute, and that's not to say anything against BitChute. BitChute's incredible, especially considering what they've done with as few people as they have. But, you know, eventually it might get there. Okay. So, anyway, that's the site stuff. I mean, that's the channel news. Let's go ahead. Let's begin talking a little bit about dialogue, okay? Let's take a look at this document right here. This is a blank Final Draft document. If you're not familiar with Final Draft is a software that's very, very much industry standard in the screenwriting industry. So in Hollywood, if you're doing teleplays, if you're writing for television. But it has a whole bunch of different formats that you can use here. So you can actually pick different formats. You can do like, there's a comic script format that's on here. There's there's a format for teleplays. There's a CBS format, an NBC format, and different people you write for will want different formats. NBC has a different one from CBS. CBS does 2 acts. NBC does 3 acts because of where their commercial breaks are. CBS, it looks different. NBC, it looks different. Both of those developed their own formats back in the early days for TV, adapted from, not from screenplays, but from plays, plays for stage. So it's a little bit more, because they shot in front of live studio audiences, which is still a thing. It's a little bit more like on-stage drama. Versus screenplays from, the 1920s on were kind of doing their own thing. So they have their own format. The benefits of a screenplay format to a screenwriter or to somebody that's going to want to read screenplays like a producer is that all the dialogue is right there. It's very easy to see action, and it's very easy to tell how long something is. 1 page of screenplay equals about 1 minute of screen time. The only exception is for certain kinds of movies like Star Wars. So if you guys have known me for a while, I will give you guys access to the original rough draft for Star Wars. It's a very cool document to check out and read sometime. It's a really cool screenplay. It's full of what amounts to prose. It's full of description. And that description can take up lots of screen time or very little screen time, depending. So if you have a very visually focused movie, you could have a script that's maybe 50 pages. So if you were to watch a movie like Valhalla Rising, which has very little dialogue in it, the script might be 50 pages. But if you're watching a comedy, a romantic comedy, the script might be 100 pages and the movie might still be 90 minutes long. The script will be slightly longer, but in general, 1 page, 1 minute. And with teleplays, it's double that, 2 pages, 1 minute, because of how fast the dialogue works and because the format's a little bigger. But we're going to just work in a screenplay format. I just thought I'd give you that information in case some of you haven't ever written a screenplay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come up with a scene that involves a couple of characters, and they're going to talk to each other. So let's in chat, because I like to interact with this in chat. Let's see if you guys can tell me, and I'll put this on the screen so they can't get rid of the chat after the fact. Let's try it. Let's see here. First character trait. Let's think of 2 characters. So first character, let's say, is this character old or young? I don't think chat's paying attention to me. Do we want a character that's old or young? Give me some character traits for the first character. Okay, young and stubborn. So the first one is young and stubborn. Okay. If he's is he male or female? Is it a he or a she? We'll do the first one young and the first one old. An old man with a long white beard, and the first one's young. Okay. Female or male for the young one? We can have 2 men. We can have 1 woman, 1 man. Coke addict is something that we're actually not going to put in this. That's something you can hint at later, but whatever. Young, stubborn, female. So the character traits. Let's actually dial it in. Good. We're not doing Z's. We're not doing any non-gendered people. That's stupid to me. All right, we're gonna have a young female. Give me a couple names. As I dial it in, traits like stubborn, prideful, these things are more general than what you'd put in a screenplay. You have to think you are actually not going to tell a director that the character is stubborn. The dialogue will communicate that fact. Okay, so what you're going to write in the prose is just purely a basic description of the character when you first see them. He's a young character with sandy blonde hair, something like that. So just be aware when you write this, you're not going to give traits like stubborn. You're not going to give traits like a coke addict. That's stuff you show or you don't mention it. Let's see here what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing Clarice. Hello, Clarice. Egwene. Oh, I don't like Egwene. Shenlong says $10 for Karen. All right. So first thing that we do with this is we have to give it an interior or exterior shot. I'm going to imagine this is since it's an old woman meeting an old man, I'm going to imagine it's an interior shot. So we're going to write interior, and then this program will actually do a lot of formatting for you. So you notice it'll just do interior for you, interior, and then we're going to do maybe a library, and then you do day. This should do it on three separate things. But it should say location, library, and then it'll give you the time of day. I think I'm used to a different formatting that actually puts this all across here. And then when you press enter, it'll go straight to action. So you'll see, maybe you can see up here, it'll say action, right? So we're going to put Karen, a young, and we can actually do this too, 20s, if you want to. But for screenplays, it's just Karen, a young woman with long blonde hair. Steps into a quiet, dusty library. Let's see what names you guys had for the old man. Why are you talking in a library? I don't know if you've ever been to libraries, but the idea of being quiet in a library is that's like a movie meme. So we can make a joke out of that, but let's see here. Erica, Esmeralda. I like let's see here. Any names for dudes? Steve. Steve doesn't sound like an old man. Robert sounds like an old man. Alfonso. I like Alfonso, actually. So, like, I've met old men named Alfonso. So, a white bearded man sits behind the desk, and we want to give an intro action for the sequence. Inspecting books. And we'll give a little action. Karen, we actually don't capitalize after the first introduction. Karen walks up to the desk and stands quietly. Now we can also give another action here where it'll say like, we'll do, if we hit tab, it'll go straight over to Karen, and we'll do Karen. And then we can do an action here such as, if we put a tab here, this is a parenthetical, which is action in the screenplay format. This is what's great about Final Draft is it makes the drafting process a lot quicker. I haven't used it like in years, by the way. So just keep in mind, if I seem slow with it, if you actually use this every day, you're going to be so quick drafting with screenplay format. It can go really fast if you know what you're doing. Clears throat. She clears her throat. Now what we can do here is we can go straight back to action. Alfonso glances up, then looks back at his book. Looks back at his... Now we're going to have Karen initiate this. Usually when you press Here we go. Karen. Excuse me? All right, so as we write this, let's think about a couple of guidelines for what you want to think about with dialogue, okay? So what's the goal of dialogue? You may have heard me say, and you've probably heard other people say, the story is told primarily through dialogue. Now, that's actually not true. That's actually a little bit of a false thing, because the story is told through whatever tools that medium has available. So a movie, the story is told visually. You know, a book, it's told through prose. What is the most interesting part of the story is the dialogue, because that's what the characters say. So dialogue has a couple of things. There's a couple of goals that you want to have for dialogue. Number one is you want to communicate feelings. Okay, so the reason people skip prose in a novel and go to the dialogue is they want to know how the character feels. They want to know what the character is going to say to another character. So all of the relationship dynamics happen in dialogue, almost all of them, like 90%. So that's where the story between characters actually happens, is dialogue, rather than the plot. The plot happens through a bunch of different means, but primarily it's about feelings. So the characters expressing how they feel. They are reacting to plot events, or they are expressing reasoning. And all three of those things are really important. When characters have a conversation about what they're going to do next, that's reasoning. When they have a conversation about how they feel about the other person, that's characterization. And when they have a conversation with somebody about an event that happened, that's reaction. All of those have to do with feelings. So characterization happens through dialogue with characters interacting. They expose the audience to who they are. When the characters react with dialogue to an event, they're exposing who they are, and they're also telling some extra information to the audience about the event that they need to know. And then when characters are, when they are talking to another about what's going to happen in the plot, they are reasoning out their motivation, right? You don't want the motivation of a character to be mystery. Most of the time, it's going to be exposed through dialogue, either through the words themselves or through the way the character says the words, okay? Well, excuse me, princess. Maybe I'm finally going to get that kiss. Me and my son actually like to watch the old Legend of Zelda cartoon. It's actually not a bad fantasy cartoon at all. And good fantasy cartoons are quite short on the stack. Other than Link's sword being like this long and just looking weird in general, it's actually quite fantastical, and there's good little plots and good little character relationships. Link is constantly trying to kiss the princess, and then she's finally like going to give him a kiss, and it doesn't happen. It's actually not bad writing. They really handed it to some people who are like, how are we going to turn this video game with no dialogue into a show? And they just kind of went with it. It's actually pretty good. Excuse me, princess. Excuse me, princess. Maybe the library is a mob front. Oh, I like this. I'm not going to have her say that she does it without attracting too much attention, but I'm going to say, let's say it's a mob front, and there's something more to it, or maybe there's like a this is a scene where she's trying to figure out what's with this library. She's investigating this library that she's heard is like a front for something. The Zelda cartoon is it's not official. That's what's great about it. All right. We're going to go, notice it goes to action, you press tab, it goes to character, and then you can type in Alfonso, and each time that you go to a character in this, you can just select from a list that you have there. What do you require? And actually we can have him with a parenthetical. Still looking at books. Now notice I'm not describing his voice. In a creaky old voice. That's going to be what the actor and the director are going to decide. I was wondering if you could help me find a book. Do you know how to use a computer? I've heard your generation is moderately adept computer use. Now we can also have an action here. Alfonso glances at a line of idle computers. So we're giving a little more information on like the set there, but notice we're not sticking to the action too hard yet. Yes, but I don't think what I want to find will be on the computer. Our entire catalog has been digitized. Still, now if we want her to interrupt, you could put a dash. You go down here to Alfonso, you do parenthetical interrupting. Do you know how to use a card catalog? Surely your schooling so ill-equipped. Surely now, this is a little bit of an idealistic dialogue, but you know, if you imagine somebody wants to be condescending, right? You could put a direction in here like condescending. Surely your schooling didn't leave you so ill-equipped as to be unable to open drawers and read cards. Maybe there's people watching who don't know how a card catalog works, so maybe this works. Can you make the font a bit bigger? It's hard to read. It's actually, yes, I can. Thank you for that. Let's size it up a bit. You guys can see it better now. Thank you for that, because I of course it's easy to read on my screen. I'm not thinking about how it looks for y'all. I apologize. What if the old man could be nicknamed Paperback? That could be like his mob name. Alfonso is the mob boss. Open drawers and read cards. Maybe Karen clears her throat again. No, I don't want her to clear her throat. I was looking for something to... now notice I'm putting in the ums. What does this communicate? Like, you wouldn't always put this in, but it gives her, you know, she's thinking. Help me clean. Now we can also put in italics to emphasize the word. Have you tried the Walmart down the road? Let's put in a millennial joke here. So we'll do Alfonso. Yeah. And he'll say, so your generation is unable to find carefully No, here we go. Clean. This is it. Alfonso. Clean what? Here's what we're gonna put. This is something that you'll see in. You're gonna see this if you read any scripts for like 30 Rock or TV shows like that. You're just gonna see it say a beat. And that's kind of the way the writers tend to write this kind of stuff. Clean. Laundry. There we go, and we'll just delete this extra line. So your generation is unable to find carefully organized books and is also unable to wash your clothes. How utterly depressing. I'll have Karen. That's not what I mean. I need to have get things clean. You'll need soap. I like Tide. Now she's going to try to drop someone that she thinks is a mobster. So give me a mobster name, chat. And maybe she'd just say, I meant money laundering. Let's put another beat there. Actually, I like that. Just like really up front. We don't carry Now maybe he's going to say something like, we're not a law library. To have a little action. So when I'm excuse me, sorry, when I'm writing dialogue, I tend to like to say it out loud because it makes it a little bit easier to see how it feels on the tongue. I mean, I need money laundering services. I need you to take my money and launder it. And it's like, let's have some action. Alfonso stops and looks up, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. Now this is this might be too much for some script writers to put that in, but I would just put it in. You can't be serious. This is a library. Oh, I'm serious. I have a lot of illegal money. I need to make the money legal. Alfonso. We're going to have a parenthetical size. I don't know what you've heard. Have you ever built entire stories from one scene? Yes, Muramasa Blood Drinker. Muramasa Blood Drinker started as one scene I wrote on a break in 2014. And then I just came up with the whole story from that. Are there other ones? I think that's the main one. Yeah. So yes, I built this story from one scene before. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, this is a good one. So Crazy Chameleon says, could she patronize the old man by asking if she needs to quiet down? Yeah, you can't be serious. This is a library, Karen. Did you need me to quiet down? Notice it automatically fixes the formatting, so it's continued. So if you break 2 lines of dialogue with action, you got to write continued. This is why Final Draft is such a great program. If you're going to be doing a lot of screenwriting, it's really the program to use. Alfonso looks around the deserted library. Did you need me to quiet down? If anybody was listening, they would think you were insane. Karen, I'm not blind. We don't have... We don't launder money. We don't launder money here. Where do you launder money? Right, so she's... You know, this... I have like a humorous idea in here, you know, that this is somebody who's you know, really trying to figure out, like trying to get into the mob, so to speak. Like that's the story that I'd be imagining where this scene would fit in. She's trying to get in with the mob, but she's completely naive. It's a fish out of water story. It's funny. That's kind of the humor that I see here. And then where do you launder money? Casinos. And, unsurprisingly, laundromats. I don't know how to spell laundromat. I'm not sure how that's spelled. Whatever, we'll go with it. Apparently, I also spelled unsurprisingly. I kind of want him to accidentally reveal this, though. You know, that's the hard part about the execution. Is like I want him to like accidentally slip up and say like at the laundromat, of course. Maybe from here. We don't launder money here. You launder money at cash businesses where the government can't prove. Where do you launder money? So what sort of cash would I deal with here? I kind of want him to like accidentally reveal. I'm thinking of a couple ways that he could do it. We don't do that today. On Tuesdays, it's got to be more subtle. Let's put that down here. What sort of cash would I deal with here? That doesn't roll off the tongue. Coins. Now, coin changer wouldn't work. Let's delete that. That's not true. Alphonse, true. I knew it. All right. Let's see how many pages this is. This is like 1, 2, 3 pages. So this would be about 3 minutes worth of dialogue. That's a pretty good scene in a comedy movie. 3 to 5 minutes. Once you start getting past 5 minutes, you're gonna bore the audience with the situation. There's not that much that the dialogue is gonna reveal about what's going on. Right? So if you go and you look at a really good comedy movie like Monty Python, virtually no individual scene is longer than about 3 minutes. There'll be 3 to 5 minutes of a scene, and then they're on to the next one. The longest scene sequences have like 3 scenes. So a scene sequence would be, in Monty Python, let's say it's the king with his effeminate son in the tower. You know, in the guards, he's like, "Don't leave until I come and get him." Right, we're not to leave until you come and get him and take him. Why aren't you taking it with you? You know that one. Right, we're not to leave even if you come and get him. No. Don't leave until I come and get him. You know, that one has like 3 or 4 scenes in the sequence, but each one is separate. What about Demolition Man? What about them? I'm not sure what you're asking about with Demolition Man. It has fairly short scenes, too. Each scene is like a little 3 to 5 minutes. And so when you look at an entire screenplay, it's going to be somewhere in the order of 20 scenes, right? 20 times 5, that's 100 minutes. You got a movie, right? So that's something there. So about 3 minutes. I knew it. And then you probably want a reaction here. Alfonso takes off. Now I might say he takes off his glasses in exasperation. You would probably shoot that differently, but that's just how I'm imagining it. You probably wouldn't write directions exactly like this, but this is how I'm doing it right now. Alfonso. Can't you see that I'm busy? said nobody comes to the library. That means you wouldn't actually you just started doing that when I walked in. Maybe have a little direction here, Alfonso. Say quietly to herself. Alfonso pauses and stops and retrieves a submachine gun from underneath his desk. There we go. And so this would be the end of the scene. And so you might write, you know, there's going to be a part here that's like transition or shot. And so you could do lots of stuff like this. So the transition would be fade out. Or like, there you go, fade out. And actually for our intro, we could do fade in here too. Do like fade in. We'd probably put that over on the left-hand side, which would be, you know, transition, fade in. Here. Okay, there's our scene. Okay, about 3.5 pages. That's a good little scene of dialogue. All right. And the main thing that we want to communicate here is we have some things that we want to say about the characters. So first of all, when Karen talks, she's exposing to the audience that she's naive and doesn't know very much, right? Alfonso talks like a knowledgeable old man. He retorts at her. He's a little bit arrogant, so we're showing some of his character traits. He's annoyed with her. He doesn't respect her. You know, he's like a grumpy old man, and you get that. But at the same time, Karen, we get this idea that she's a little bit clever because she does kind of get him to admit, Alfonso to admit this, and because of his arrogance, he accidentally admits that, you know, this is the front. And so I imagine the next scene is like he takes her back to meet, you know, to the back offices where there's a mob front, you know, a mob organization in the stacks or something, or in the storage warehouse. And it's like, you know, she came in and she wanted to say some stuff about money laundering. And then like the mob boss could repeat the same thing. It's like, you don't launder money at a library. You launder money at a casino, someplace where people spend cash and the feds don't know how much cash they spent. You could declare whatever you want. It's like, you know, that's money laundering. It's like, you need someone to launder cash for you. It's like, and maybe like the mob boss would be very, what's the word I'm looking for here? Condescending. He'd be like, listen, toots, I don't know how much your money you have, but take it, split it up into 10 equal payments of less than 5 G's, open 5 different bank accounts, and the feds won't know that you deposited that. You can transfer this much money at a time, and boom, the money's laundered. She's like, I need to launder $575,000. And then the mob boss will be like surprised at that. So that'd be like a good follow-up scene for something like this. Maybe good. Yeah, lady, if you want to do something dirty, be a stripper. Yeah, see, these are all good little suggestions. You know, this would be like, I'm imagining with this, it'd be like a mob comedy movie. You know, kind of a funny movie about the mob, something like what was the one with the whole 9 yards? Something like that. That would actually be kind of funny. Submachine gun. There we go. Submachine gun? All right, whatever. Okay, so this is a good example of how we can write a scene that's heavy on dialogue. If we wanted to do the next one, we could actually just do fade, like this. Then we could do the next scene, which would be interior. We could do open or dark warehouse. And then we would do day. For some reason, it didn't do the dash here. So let's fix that. No. Out of here, Spark type. Day. There we go. Okay, fix that. So this is what your scene headings will look like in a screenplay, you know. And then we'd have a thing. Karen follows Alfonso through dusty book stacks into an open warehouse full of boxes, a few dimly lit sit above the floor. You know, I'm imagining like a catwalk. She follows him up the... Alfonso motions for her to go up the stairs. For her to go up the stairs. Then we're going to introduce a new character. Let's see here. Who's a new character? Let's pick up a name up here. Let's see here. Frank. Fat Frank. Frank. A large and well-dressed, middle-aged man sits at a desk using a computer. Frank. What is this, Alphonse? And we do Alfonso. Karen's eyes go wide as Frank folds his hands. Karen. I didn't expect to see a mob boss using a computer. Flat. And we'd actually have another direction here, which would be another parenthetical. Annoyed. And I'm trying to think of something funny he would say, or something like you know, you want him to be, if you want to be like a classic Italian or like Sicilian mobster, he would say something maybe misogynistic, which is like, I like him young but not stupid. Let me just say I get to the point, madam. Maybe Karen says, Karen has to tell him his name, you know. My name is Karen. My name is Karen. She extends her hand. Frank stares at it. You know, mob bosses have lives too outside of mobbing. Of course, Frank has a Facebook. I just think it's more funny. It's like she has this assumption about like mob bosses like drinking whiskey. Maybe put a parenthetical here. Frank stares at her in disbelief. Frank. Delicate cycle. Probably do another parenthetical because he keeps like he's gonna keep talking to Alphonse. Yes, I did quite a bit of digging. And we'd probably do a parenthetical here, interrupting. Or do Karen? Now it says continued. $300,000. Let's do Deutschmarks. I actually don't know how to spell Deutschmarks. I think it says in the Deutschmarks. Whatever. You guys know how to spell Deutschmarks. Is it UE or EU? 300,000 Deutschmarks. I'm going to Google it. Oh, there's an S. I forgot the S. Now I'm going to do something kind of politically incorrect, but I always start by writing. Forget an S. Deutschmark. No E. There's no E in Deutschmark. Well, oddly, see, sometimes this program doesn't know how to spell things. Is it Deutschmark? Deutschmarks. Okay. Yeah. So she's got a bunch of Deutschmarks in cash, you know. Let's do a beat. Anyway, we could keep on going with that. I mean, just to give you an idea of like how quickly you can write a screenplay if you actually know what you're doing. This is 6 pages out of 100, and we've spent like 30 minutes writing it. So if you're really good and you have everything plotted out and you know what you're doing, you can write a screenplay in a weekend without any problems. Like I could write a screenplay in a night if I really knew what I was doing. Because it's so much quicker than trying to write prose and have good sounding prose, especially like the quality of prose that I make myself write takes a little bit longer to write. It's much easier to write 10 pages of screenplay than 1,000 words, in my opinion. Right? Right. That's a challenge. Yeah, Frank looks too Alfonso. I'm thinking, because these scenes are like out of context, what you'd probably do, this is really like it's really like a transition kind of scene to a second act. You'd probably write a first act scene that involved her finding like a treasure, right? And then finding the mob to launder it. That's probably what I'd have. So obviously, like, we haven't done any planning to make this screenplay. I just wanted to show some dialogue. All of this, if you were to say it out loud, would be probably be pretty good. And so one of the things you could do is read this by yourself or read it with somebody else and have them act it a little bit, especially if you know someone or you're working with a screen partner who's an actor. Excuse me. What do you require? I was wondering if you could help me find a book. Do you know how to use a computer? I've heard your generation is moderately adept at computer use. Alfonso glances at a line of idle computers. Yes, but I don't think what I want to find will be on the computer. Our entire catalog has been digitized. Still, do you know how to use a card catalog? Surely your schooling didn't leave you so ill-equipped as to be unable to open drawers and read cards. I was looking for something to, help me clean. Clean what? A beat. Laundry? So your generation is unable to find carefully organized books and is also unable to wash their clothes. How utterly depressing. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, I need to get things clean. You'll need soap. Have you tried the Walmart down the road? That's not the kind of cleaning I'm talking about. I like Tide. I'm imagining it's like completely deadpan. It's cheap and effective. Now please excuse me, I have work to do. A beat. I mean money laundering. We don't carry books on illegal activities. We're also not a law library if you're looking for case law. Say if you are. So I'd get rid of the you are if you're looking for case law. And actually have it. If you are looking for case law, that's a different level of formality than we want. I mean, I need money laundering services. I need you to take my money and launder it. Alfonso stops and looks up, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. You can't be serious. This is a library. Did you need me to quiet down? Alfonso looks around the deserted library. If anybody was listening, they would think you were insane. Oh, I'm serious. I have a lot of illegal money. I need to make the money legal. That's laundering, right? I'll just make it even. I don't know what you've heard, but this is a library. I'm not blind. I wondered. We don't launder money here. You launder money at cash businesses where the government can't prove you didn't gather the revenue in said business. So where do you launder money? Casinos and, unsurprisingly, laundromats. What kind of cash does a library have? Late fees? Nobody even comes to libraries anymore. Which makes it the perfect front for your organization. Yes, that's true. I knew it! It's not perfect, you know. I might work on it and dial it in if I was actually trying to make this a really, really good script. Why are you tormenting me? Can't you see that I'm busy? You said nobody comes to the library. That means you wouldn't actually be checking in returned books. You just started doing that when I walked in, huh? Alfonso steps up. Actually, he stands up. Come with me, please. I knew it. Alfonso pauses and, remembering suddenly, stops and retrieves a submachine gun from underneath his desk. He checks the chamber and nods for Karen to follow. Do you happen to... Oh, I like this one. Do you happen to also have any Confederate money? I'm going to put that one in there because that's a good one. How about Song Dynasty Silver? No, it's that makes him too smart. I might want Frank to actually be a really smart guy. I don't think mobsters are stupid, but like that probably is not. That's like a David Stewart joke, and not really a Frank joke. You have to also have any Confederate money. And if he wouldn't happen to say that, he'd probably say, do you have any Confederate money too? All right, so that's probably about it for this scene. Otherwise, you have to start making a whole movie out of this scene, right? But I just wanted to show the dialogue, so it actually goes along pretty good. Frank frowns. I'm thinking of like, you remember those ads that would be like, send in your gold. I think I want him to invoke the name of a Roman god here. It would probably be, Pluto. No. Probably be it. Pluto would be one good one. I want him to invoke kind of Mercury. Yeah, that's probably it. I'd have to think more to do more than this. All right, so this is a good couple scenes. This is what, 6 pages. Thank you, Paddington. Thank you for the $2. First one you caught live. Cool. Thanks for joining me. This is a kind of a fun one to do live because writing live is a little bit different, and hopefully it's not too boring because I spend a lot of time thinking and like typing, and I could totally see Jupiter's balls of Jupiter. What's an anatomy part that starts with an M? Mercury's member, but that's like too medical. It'd be like Mercury's bones. Venus's breast. That's too hard to say. You'd say like Mercury's bones. Don't tell me you called one of those jewelry places. If we put a question mark there. Uncomfortable. And lying. No. Mercury's mandibles. Mercury's membranes. Mercury's mustache. Mercury's muscles. Mercury's mandible. What would be the other one? I don't remember. Hermes' hair. All right, that's probably good. Anyway, that's writing dialogue. 3 main goals. Characterization, reaction, especially reaction, and contemplation. So this is one of the ways that you explore how the plot works, how people react to events, how people plan for events, and how people interact is going to create those things. So the better that they interact, the better characterization you have. If you want to see this applied to movies, so Star Wars is probably a good one because lots of people have seen it. The first Star Wars movie, Star Wars 77, it's a really good one to look at for how you quickly characterize. So when George Lucas had characters interact, they very quickly exposed important things about themselves. The dialogue told you backstory. It told you about things that were interesting to the character. It's like, it's only one more season. That whole thing with Uncle Owen is telling you that Luke wants to leave. He wants to go to the Flight Academy, maybe join the Empire or something like that. All of that stuff exposes you to how the character works. It shows you how Uncle Owen is, that he's trying to protect him. You have dialogue that very quickly exposes Han Solo. I don't have it with me, that kind of stuff is all part of showing you who the character is. The second one, though, the reason that people really like Empire Strikes Back, I've decided, is the characters. Because the plot is probably the weakest of the original trilogy and probably the weakest of all the Star Wars movies in terms of the depth of the plot or how complicated it is. The plot's really simple. There's not a lot that happens in Empire Strikes Back. But what you get are these great scenes where characters are talking and exposing the universe, exposing each other, and growing in a sense. So Han and Leia's interactions It's a very strong ability to characterize and then show them growing together over time. Luke and Yoda, likewise, is very strong. It shows you the nature of the universe, of the Star Wars universe, and also shows you Luke's some really deep parts of his personality where he's arrogant and resistant to change and not wanting to submit. And it also, in an indirect way, exposes Darth Vader as well. So you get these great character expositions of Han and Leia interacting, Darth Vader pursuing the plot and interacting with the Empire and exposing himself that way, and then Luke exposing himself through his interactions with Yoda. And that's what people like Empire Strikes Back. Besides the obvious stuff like the aesthetics are great and that kind of stuff, it's really all about the characters, and the fact that the plot is just very, very simple doesn't really bother people. Nor should they feel bad that it doesn't bother them. You don't need a ton of plot if the dialogue and the characterization is really on point. A simple plot that pulls it all together is really all you need. Other movies that are very, very much dialogue driven, it's going to be anything by Quentin Tarantino. So Quentin Tarantino movies are very primarily dialogue with very little action, other than something like Kill Bill. There's exceptions. So if you watch something like Reservoir Dogs, it's pretty much 100% dialogue, and there's only a couple of characters in it. But all of the exposition, all of the discovery, and it's those things. It's reacting to an event, it's planning for the future, and it's interacting to discover things about the other character. If you watch something like Pulp Fiction, it's entirely characters interacting with each other and showing you who that character is. Very little planning for the future, but a lot of reacting to events. Those are really good movies to look at for dialogue. So Pulp Fiction, I think, is one of the best dialogue movies that you could probably watch. I'll do an analysis on Pulp Fiction at some point. It's actually one of my favorite movies. Even though it's told in a very disjointed style, it all adds up to a very, very cool set of messages that I think work, that Quentin Tarantino is both subtle and upfront with. And it's good. So those are movies I like to look at. Another one that I really like to look at for dialogue is actually The Godfather. So the first Godfather movie, the second one's also good, but I like the first one better. It's primarily told through dialogue, and it's a lot of characters planning, executing, and then reacting. So the plot, the action happens just for a few moments between stretches of dialogue where things are explored through dialogue. So it's a really, really good one to look at if you want to see how a story is actually driven by dialogue. That's one of the things that I think is great about that particular movie. And indeed, most classic movies have to rely more heavily on the dialogue than on visual elements. So if you watch The Maltese Falcon, or you watch The Manchurian Candidate, the original one, there's no action in these movies, right? The action is just like The Manchurian Candidate. There's really no action. There's virtually nothing happening. All the tension comes from the dialogue exposing you to what you need to anticipate. It's great. So classic movies tend to rely more on the dialogue than newer movies, because if you're watching something like Transformers, The Black Side of Pluto, Into the Sun, whatever the current Transformers 12 is, dude, you don't even need the dialogue. The dialogue is like superfluous. The story's superfluous. You want to see fighting robots. So older movies didn't have as much of that luxury. They had to rely more on that. Indeed, even if you watch kaiju movies like the Godzilla movies, they rely really heavily on dialogue, because even though it's a special effects movie, the way that you have to tell the story is you have characters reacting to Godzilla. It's like, oh no, or it's like, oh, he's looking for a Godzillasaur egg, whatever it happens to be for that Godzilla movie. It's all about the characters kind of telling you in a sideways way what's actually happening. Or retrieve the god. He's looking he's looking for the baby Godzilla or whatever it is. Oh no. He's like, he's heading for Kyushu. He's heading straight for Space Godzilla. And they say that, and it's not, it sounds silly when I say it, but it's like, they're heading for Kyushu. He's heading straight for Space Godzilla. And they show you visually on a map, like, here's Space Godzilla, and here's Godzilla, and like they're coming together, and then there's a battle between them, But the dialogue really explains a lot about what's happening. So always be aware that the dialogue is that. When you're writing a book, people will skip prose, but they'll almost never skip dialogue, because that's what matters, is how people feel. It's how the characters feel. All right, let's take a look at chat. I'm unsure if you ever addressed this in a video. It's been a while. Have you seen the anime Goblin Slayer? I haven't seen it yet. The protagonist has almost no dialogue. I think that has an effect too. Something like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, the main character speaks very little. There's very little dialogue in it in general. That gives you a lot more focus on the visuals, the visual space. You could tell a story without dialogue. But, most of the time you're not going to. It's a big challenge. It's very difficult to tell a story without dialogue. I haven't seen Goblin Slayer yet. I'll probably watch it at some point. I just got my Blu-ray of Cowboy Bebop, and I haven't watched that in like 20 years, so I'll probably watch that at some point here next. I haven't yet seen it. Sunset Boulevard is a 50s movie with great dialogue and narration about a screenwriter struggling with integrity. I actually haven't seen that. Let's see here. Why do you think Disney can't resist making the dialogue in the sequel trilogy Marvel-esque? Don't they realize Star Wars is supposed to be a fairy tale? Why can't they resist it? I don't know if it's that they can't resist it, but they hire talent that doesn't understand or doesn't care about trying to emulate what came before it. They're gonna have Poe Dameron prank call General Hux because that's what would happen in a Marvel movie. Because what they watch is Marvel movies. They don't watch Star Wars. They have no reverence for it. They're not really trying to emulate it. They just look at it as like a setting to write new stories in. It would be kind of like if you wanted to make a new Marvel movie and you wanted to change the tone to be something way more serious. That probably wouldn't work as well. Lucas also used melodramatic dialogue. So again, Lucas used, rather than calling it melodramatic, it's really closer to the idealist style, a literary style called idealism, which is that people talk in a composed way. So Yoda, if you imagine Yoda and Mace Windu sitting down, they tell exactly what's happening and what they say. There's no naturalistic stammering or wondering over what they're going to say. There's no awkwardness to how they say it. The acting is really almost flat. Well, that's partly it's their characters are Jedi Masters, but also it's just the way he writes it. It's very straightforward and very efficient too. It's more in the idealist style. You'll never have a character talk about how they need to use the bathroom in a Star Wars movie until Disney. And once you get Disney, that's the next thing. That's how you know that they don't understand what they're doing, is if they, the Last Jedi opened up with this prank call and you knew that they were jumping the shark. They had no idea what they're doing. But if you ever have a character talk about having to potty, that ain't Star Wars anymore. In Star Wars, people's bodily functions are not discussed. They don't put that on the screen. That's part of the idealist style. You don't talk about having to go pee-pee and poo-poo like you're dealing with a toddler. I have to be very straight with my toddler. Do you need to go pee-pee or poop? Or like if I have to use the bathroom, do you need to go pee-pee or poo-poo? It's like, I have to go pee-pee. It's like, this is reality with a 3-year-old, but you don't need that in a Star Wars movie. It doesn't add anything to it. You don't like the characters more for the fact that they have bodily functions. If in the next movie Rey talks about her period, you know that it's over, guys. Like when she's they're gonna do it. One of these days there's gonna be a Star Wars movie with a female characters talking about periods or something to try to shock the audience, and you know that they have no idea what they're doing. I would not be at all surprised if that happened. Let's keep going here. What if he mentions King Midas? Oh yeah, this is stuff. Have a good evening. Good evening, Jorge. Thank you. This is all dialogue suggestions. This is good stuff. I'm writing a story that takes place in 19th century London. Is it a good idea for my characters to use slang and jargon that would be common at the time? Yes and no. That's a hard question to answer. So I don't recommend that people write things phonetically. So I don't recommend that if you're dealing with a character that has like a Cockney kind of accent, that you're saying that you're writing math instead of math. These maths, that you're like, I need to take a bath. Don't write bath. Write bath with the th, right? Don't write in phonetics. It's distracting to the reader, takes them out of the story. Anything that slows down the experience or annoys people or makes them have to think about what is he saying, you don't want to do, right? Having a character talk with a Cockney accent is something for a movie to to have the Cockney accent. You just say, he said in his characteristic Cockney. And you can add maybe a couple of like glottal stops. What's going on in here? Right? Like you wouldn't say, what's like what's going on in, and like apostrophe, yeah. You know, you don't want to write everything phonetically. It sounds awful. But you could use terms that are part of that. What you have to keep in mind is sometimes your audience won't know those terms. So you may not want to use them. Or you could have very strong finesse where, where's your derringer? And the character, and then you have in the prose, Bobby pulled his small pistol from his pocket. So that kind of informs the reader that a derringer is a small pistol when the typical reader has no idea what a derringer is. I think I talked about a derringer the last time. It's like I say these terms and sometimes people don't get it. So like when I was writing Voices of the Void, there's some technical stuff with guns in it. I tried to keep it light, you know. I tried not to make the reader confused with what the parts were. You know, a reader has an idea what a slide or receiver is, hopefully. But some readers don't. They have no idea like any part to a gun. So it's hard to describe a character taking down, you know, opening up an AR receiver and popping out of the block in the autoseer. You know, something like that. The Black Knight was hilarious. What part about Demolition Man? The old man could say... It's a Truthberry. That's good. Eddie the Pooch. Yeah, banter. Thank you, Jared. Love the banter between Alfonso and Karen. It's pretty funny. That's kind of what you're going for. A lot of comedy has banter, and you have to be able to drop in the jokes. There's different forms of comedy. There's like awkward comedy. There's joke factory stuff. You gotta think about what you're doing. Can you make the front a bit bigger? Oh yeah, got that. Thank you for that. Excuse me, princess. All right, let's see if I missed anything else. Okay. Let's see here. Regarding classic movies depending more on dialogue, don't forget silent films, especially Buster Keaton movies, which were generally very action-heavy. Also King Kong and Long. Yeah, that's actually a great point, Hardwick. That's an excellent point. So silent movies, it was kind of the opposite. The dialogue had to be extremely compact because it was just on a splash screen between actions. So the actions had to tell everything. Have you seen Hardcore Henry? Main character is unable to speak and it's done entirely in first person. Maybe it's just me, but I'm sick about hearing about Star Wars. I am too. If I talk about it, it's because I know. So I'll let you in on the secret, which is that if you talk about Star Wars, more people know what you're talking about because it's like the most popular thing in the history of the world. But also, you'll get more views and clicks if you make videos about Star Wars. I don't like to. You know, some people, that's all they do is make videos on Star Wars. Some people, their channel's specifically about that. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what my channel's about. But I will talk about Star Wars if it's going to get people's attention and if it's going to appropriately explain what's happening. You have to think that Star Wars is very well executed. There's a lot of great things in Star Wars to talk about in cinema, writing, everything, you know. So Star Wars is a good one. It's like talking about Harry Potter. Everyone's read it. Everyone's seen the movies. It's a great place to start because it does a lot of these things well that I'm talking about, you know. Rather than if I was going to sit here like, let me talk about dialogue, and I start talking about Ronin. Like, Ronin is a great movie with great dialogue that does these things. There's parts where they're planning, parts where they're executing, parts where they're interacting with each other and exposing characters. There's great dialogue and characterization in Ronin. Most of you watching haven't seen that movie, so it's not going to be, you know, it's not going to be a great choice. You know what I mean? Kevin Smith movies have a lot of good banter, by the way. That's another one. I don't think he's that good of a director or writer. Just in general, he's just not that great. His plots tend to be weak, and I think his movies tend to be a little bit boring, especially something like Chasing Amy. Chasing Amy is almost painfully boring. But there's great dialogue and banter in Chasing Amy. The thing is, once you've seen it, the dialogue and the banter doesn't do anything. And you could be bored of the dialogue and banter if you don't like the characters. I want to know the spoilers before I see a new movie. Rationale is so many bad movies now, and my favorite movies I love to rewatch, even though I've seen the plot play out a thousand times. Boy, that's a good point from Jordan and Alyssa. a joint account maybe. So yeah, that's a great point. Is that great stuff you can rewatch, and there's a lot to it, and the spoilers don't bother you. A lot of crappy stuff, not so much. But still, I try to avoid spoilers in reviews because I know a lot of people care about that. Bro, it's already over. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Bob. Let's see here. The people at Disney and Lucasfilm don't know how Star Wars is supposed to be in general, so it's no surprise to get people who don't know how to write the films properly. Yeah, it's going to be whatever guys are like on the list for who gets jobs in Hollywood. People don't get work in Hollywood because they're good at what they do. Talent is not hard to find, especially in Hollywood where there's literally everyone goes to be in movies, you know. So if you think that a given actor is talented, there's at least 100 other actors just as talented as him. He got the part because he's either good looking or he's already known. You hire Brad Pitt not because he's a good actor, but because people like Brad Pitt. That's why you hire him. Same thing with Johnny Depp. You don't hire him because he's good. Johnny Depp is a good actor, but there's other actors that are just as good as him. I guarantee it. Same thing with singers. It's like, well, they're hiring this new actress in Little Mermaid because she's a good singer. I'm like, I don't think she's good, number one. But number two, I guarantee you there's thousands of other people in Hollywood that are better than she is. They have better talent, better singing, better quality vocals, better composers, everything. But you know, the race is not to the swiftest nor the battle. Race is not to the swift nor the battle to the strong. People do not get work in Hollywood simply because they're good. It's other factors. The other thing is like attractiveness. You can have a great actor who's not attractive. He's not going to get the leading roles, right? Steve Buscemi is not going to be a lead actor. He's ugly. Steve, if you're watching, I love you, but you're ugly, bro. Someone who's good looking is going to get the part. Same thing, especially with female talent. You hear people lament about how older actresses don't seem to find work. It's because you want young, hot women that look good. And in fact, that's probably more important than their acting ability because viewers will forgive bad acting, but they won't forgive ugly. At least that's the conventional wisdom. Lovecraft did a great job with accents. He really understood the accents, though. The thing about Lovecraft is that he did it sparingly. So he would do these Yankee accents where instead of spelling there, he'd say thar, Thar. Don't go out there. Right? And so there'd be like one or two phoneticizations in that line. He didn't go overboard with it. But even then, sometimes I'd have to stop and think about what he was saying. You know? What do you think of Mark Twain's attempt at conveying... Oops. It always jumps down. What do you think of Mark Twain's attempt at conveying accents and dialects in Huckleberry Finn, Prince and the Pauper? I don't have an opinion right now because I don't remember. It's been too long. I don't think he did the accents, though, in Connecticut Yankee. Because obviously they weren't actually speaking English in 800 AD. You know, that the English as a language didn't exist. Captain Lamb, thank you for the input. That's very helpful. You're very, very welcome. When doing dialogue for books, when should you end a quote with a period versus a comma? Is it when you don't carry the quote through prose interruption? It's when you're going to say said. Let me show you. I'll just show you real quick. So this is a formatting thing. Great technical question. Bob is an ugly bastard, William said. Notice it's when you're going to continue the sentence. Whenever you have a new speaker, you need to tag that speaker with William said or whatever the character is. Bod instead of Bob. Bob is an ugly bastard, William said. He scratched his chin. Some action. Then we're going to have a period one. He really pegs the uglyometer. Ends with a period. Because we're going on to a new speaker, right? We wouldn't have to... He really pegs the uglyometer. Now, the thing is, I could put this in different ways. William said while he scratched his chin. Or you could do like scratching his chin. Scratching his chin. He really pegs the uglyometer. You probably wouldn't do another comma and then like another action. You try to put the action, all the action in the same place. Just stylistically, that tends to be a little cleaner. And then maybe you're going to have a response from Jake. You're always so negative, Jake said. He looked up at William. I don't know. Let's just say Jake said. And then maybe we just have a reply. Not always. Now we don't need to tag the speaker because there's only 2 people and we're not introducing someone new. You just leave the William said off, and not always. Yes, always. And then we have an action. Jake tossed his cigarette into the gutter. I've never heard you speak well of a man. Makes me wonder. On my bad. It's when you enter the period. Okay, so some basic stylistic stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, let's look at some other chat here. Bob, bro, you got to do. I got to read this. Bro, you got to make Star Wars videos every day, each 10 minutes long with 2 ad breaks. Professional YouTuber. I wouldn't have enough to say, and I would be annoyed with myself for doing it. There's more to it than that, right? Because I'm not running a Star Wars channel. If you're running a Star Wars channel and everyone's just expecting you to do Star Wars content every day, then that's what you do, right? But that's not what I'm doing. Same thing as if you have a channel on any subject. If you have a channel on record reviews. I do a lot of stuff on my channel, and that's the way I like it. I would get bored doing 10-minute Star Wars videos. And the thing is, there's some channels that do Star Wars videos, and there's lots of different kinds of Star Wars videos, and then there's channels that do, every day is just more bitching about, the sequel trilogy sucks. It's like, yeah. I've pretty much said everything I need to say about Last Jedi with, the 2 videos I made on it. And then everyone asks me, have you seen this video? I'm like, I don't need to. I don't need to watch other people's content on it. I don't want to. I'm done thinking about it. I don't like to think about it. I only think about it when people live streams make me think about it. Why would I want to spend my time thinking about how Last Jedi sucks? What's the point in that? I want to spend my time writing my stories that matter to me. Did Lucas supervise any of the EU at a lore level? Is there anything besides the 6 films we could consider canon due to his involvement? I think everything worked off of his Bible, and also he approved those books. But there's always been this very, I think, appropriate consideration that everything in the EU is like a step down. That the movies are the official highest level, and the stuff from the EU was, people called it canon, but it just, it's a slightly lower level, so it could be changed with the movie. It was subject to change, right? And there's lots of great stories in the EU, so it doesn't. This is the thing I want to communicate to people. Something doesn't have to be the highest official artistic level for it to be good. Someone does a new Conan story, and if you like it, that's fine. You don't have to not like it because Robert E. Howard didn't write it, right? Just because George Lucas didn't write those books doesn't mean they aren't worth reading. Bro, it's already over is in response to you saying that's when you know Star Wars is over. Yeah, you're right. It is already over. The silent pictures were the purest form of cinema. In many of the films now being made, there's very little cinema. They are mostly what I call photographs of people talking. When we tell a story in cinema, we should resort to dialogue only when it's impossible to do otherwise. Alfred Hitchcock. That's interesting. I think Lucas kind of had the same thing. He wanted his movies to be able to be watched silently. The visually you would tell it. So when I say that stories are told through dialogue, it is a slight lie. You really tell a story through the medium that you're telling it. So if a story is told through dialogue, there's no reason to have a movie because the movies are visual. You could just read the dialogue. You could just read it in a book, right? But even with a book, you tell the story through prose and dialogue. It's through the medium. So you should use the visual medium. And some of my favorite movies are very dialogue light. But dialogue's important. That's where people really gravitate towards. People's favorite movies usually have the best dialogue in them. Would you consider watching and reviewing the John Wick franchise? Yeah, it's a great franchise with an amazing action. You can clearly see that it isn't shaky. Oh yeah, no more shaky cam. Yeah, I'll check it out. For whatever reason, I haven't watched them. I think I watched part of the first one, but it wasn't that I didn't like it. It's just that I think I was at somebody's house, and so I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the whole thing. What do you think about the casting for the new James Bond movie? I really don't know much about it. I only know what people told me, which is that they're going to make a black female 007, and I'm like, I don't care. I really don't care that much about James Bond, and like I said, they can't ruin James Bond because you can't unmake. You can destroy, but you can't unmake. You can't make something so it never existed. You can destroy that which exists, right? But even then, you can't destroy an old movie unless you go and you delete every single copy of it, like what Disney tries to do with Song of the South. You can't unmake something. Well, people 200 years or so from now, will they think the way we speak today is overly formal or flowery, similarly to the way we view how people spoke and wrote in the 18th century? I don't know. I have no idea. This is the idea that speech gets simpler. What you have to remember is that we're viewing 18th and 19th century language through a filter which is called formal prose writing, and so people probably wrote differently in letters than they do when they speak. Just like if they were to read today's academic papers, they think we were extremely dry and technical people, when that's just one thing. So if you're just reading letters, people, when they composed a letter, they meant, they really made it good, because they wouldn't write it quickly and throw it away. They would carefully write it because it was going to take a while to get to the sender. The sender was going to contemplate what was in the letter and write back. When you slow down the communication, you have to have more focus on the language. If you were to hear people talk in 19th century England, they probably were pretty simple with it and pretty casual. Even the people who were higher level on the socioeconomic ladder, they probably had a casual language and a formal language too. What do you think of Howard Hawks' style dialogue, such as his Girl Friday? I don't think anything, because I'm not recalling His Girl Friday at all. I don't know that. Maybe I never saw it. Probably never saw it. Thank you for a bunch of the quote help. You're welcome. I like your channel specifically because you're more than one subject. Thank you. Did you watch Brightburn? I did not. Why would I spend my time thinking about how Last Jedi sucks? Money. There you go. I agree. I'm sick of the constant Star Wars talk as well. That's why I try to do lots of other things. I'm sure I will talk about Star Wars more when the next movie comes out and inevitably sucks, because it's a way to get attention from people. You can say it's a horror thing. It's part of marketing, right? It's like, this will get people's attention. You do some of that, then you do content that delivers something that's more specific. It's kind of like a funnel. If you do nothing but things that are intended to get people's attention, it's hard to hold their attention, because people get bored of Star Wars. That they like that you said some things about Star Wars, but they'll get bored if all you do is talk about Star Wars. And there's people like, all you do is talk about Star Wars. I'm like, how many of my videos have you watched? And they're like, 3. It's like, you watched my 3 Star Wars videos. All I talk about is Star Wars. It's like, I don't know if you knew this, but I had a bunch of guitar instruction videos on this channel. Some of which I've made private, by the way, because they just they don't convert. So if I do more guitar instruction, I'll probably do it on another channel. Let's see what else here. Did you hear that Abigail Disney recently investigated Disneyland and was livid over their treatment of their workers? No, I have no idea about that. I have met people that worked at Disneyland and they've never had any complaints, really. Lucas made Star Wars like a silent film, yeah. Rather than ruin, can we complain that the IP owners are wasting money and time on idiotic, evil, countercultural decisions rather than more cool stories based on originals? Yeah, I mean, it's that's it, But here's the thing. What's the solution, right? Like, I might make a video on this, which is, who's really winning the culture war? The Amish, right? The time that you spend talking about their IP can have an anti-fragile effect, meaning it's still marketing. It's still marketing their movies for them. People need to be willing to read books, because books cost very little money to produce, and there's a huge variety of them, and there's lots of awesome ones. People need to read more books and watch less movies. Movies cost millions of dollars to make. So before anything gets to the movie stage, it's been stripped of all risk and originality at this point because people are so afraid that they can't make money back on a movie. In fact, you're probably going to lose money on most movies. So read books. You got to read more books, guys. Books are where all the stories are. That's where all these movies start off as popular books. Just read books and skip the movies. That's why I write books like, where the hell is it? Ground of Sight. This is a 2-hour book. 2 hours. Okay, so you don't have to watch a movie. You can read this book and enjoy your 2 hours and read a story that's cool and original and is nothing like any Hollywood movie you've ever seen. This will be a completely different experience from anything you've seen on the screen. In fact, I don't even know how you would translate this to the screen because of the concepts that are in it about like recorded history and erasing memory and things like that. So you could do that. The new one, Voices of the Void. Instead of watching another crappy Hollywood movie, you could read a book. Think about how much more you'd enjoy reading. So a lot of books take about 10 hours to read. So that's 5 movies. Instead of watching 5 movies, read 1 book. So 5 bad movies make you angry. 1 good book makes you happy. Read books. Read more books, guys. More books, less movies, more books. In fact, the more you can avoid just the visual medium right now, the pop visual medium, the better off you'll be. Or only watch foreign cinema. Like I'm probably only going to watch things that people have told me are good and from another country. Korean cinema, Japanese cinema, Chinese cinema. I'm probably not going to be watching very many American films this year because I have no confidence in their ability to tell stories anymore. The confidence is so low that I just don't even want to invest the time. I'll probably watch John Wick, but that's just because you guys say it's cool. Otherwise, like I would never have bothered. And I'll probably watch the new Star Wars movie because it'll make me money to review it, and that's it. You know, I'm being honest. I'm an honest guy. You guys know I'm honest. And you can use the same principles if you guys are authors with your marketing, right? Do something that gets people's attention. Say something sucks. Say something's really good. But I'll tell you right now that you're going to have better conversations and you're going to convert better with positive content. So the more you talk about things you love, the more you attract people that are actually like you. Okay, and those are the people who are really going to like your fiction. So that's why I'm talking a lot about Lovecraft, is I love Lovecraft's writing. I attract people who like Lovecraft's writing, and then they like my writing too, because it has an element of that. Like part of his thumbprint ends up being kind of filtered through my brain and put on my pages and ends up being an enjoyable experience for them. If an author likes the authors that you like, chances are he's going to write like the authors you like. So it's an easy way to find authors that you like and also to find readers that might like your stuff. So that's probably what I'm going to do more of going forward. It's because it converts better. I know I'm talking about business and I'm pulling this shade off and pulling the veil down and I'm talking about reality with business, but that's how it is, guys. And you can use it and you can know how to use it. Just be aware, like I know when I put Star Wars as a subject as any video, it's going to be a shit fest. It's going to be a free-for-all of people who are angry at me because of whatever I said. It's going to be a bunch of people who agree with me and it's going to be a bunch of people who hate me. So I walk into that hornet's nest regularly because I know it's a way to attract certain people. And I know it's a way, I can make $10 by doing it. But also you get a couple people's attention. They stay with you for a while till they get angry and they leave. Or they stay with you and they end up really liking you and they stick around. And that's what I really want. So you do some stuff that's very wide appeal and gains a lot of attention. And then you do a bunch of narrow focus stuff that's very positive. And that's what keeps people around. And that's my current strategy. And you guys can use that strategy as well, or adapt it to your own personality. Have you read Frank Herbert's book, Hellstorm High? I actually haven't. Very interesting and strange book. Very quickly written, but also very well told story. Writing a book quickly doesn't make it bad. Robert Jordan used to write books like in a week. I think he wrote a Conan book in over spring break. Is it just me, or is the dialogue of the original Star Wars trilogy not bad overall? It's not bad. It's good overall. That's why George Lucas hired screenwriters for the second two, was just to make the dialogue really good. It's not like they didn't write the plots to the movie. He came up with the plot and the story, and they wrote the dialogue. That's really kind of how it worked. as the executive producer, he was really running the show. I really only enjoyed talking about the first 6 Star Wars films. Yeah. I still need to finish talking about the original trilogy, but I just, you get tired, man. I get so tired of people like coming through and harassing me because they don't like a movie that I like, or they like a movie that I don't like. You just get tired of poking the hornet's nest. I do it on purpose, and I know what I'm doing, but like it just gets old. It just gets old with sequel fans coming through, and I had people like calling employers I don't even work for anymore because they like Star Wars and I don't. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. People take things way too seriously on the internet. I've read some primary sources from the American Civil War that shows there was a major divide between the formal and informal ways people spoke back then. And there's those now. That's a great point, when people talk about like Ebonics or like ghetto black language, sometimes you hear like the black gangster talking, you're like, what did he say? Or you hear someone from East London and you're like, someone from England cannot know what like a low class person from London is actually saying. They're like, I can't understand them. I've had friends from England. They're like, yeah, sometimes you talk to people from the country and you're like, what are you saying? Like their speech is incomprehensible because it's such a low way of talking. It's like they're talking another language sometimes. And that's if you're in the same country. This stuff exists in the same country. What do you think of Charles Dickens? And if you read A Tale of Two Cities, what do you think of it? I like A Tale of Two Cities. I like Charles Dickens somewhat. I think he takes way too many pages to tell a story, but that's part of the 19th century style. So it's not like I have to judge him as bad because everyone else wrote like that back then too. So yeah, it's okay. Every once in a while I might read Dickens. I haven't read any Dickens in quite some time. Do you find yourself abandoning Hollywood and just reading more old books? Yeah, I do. CS. The sad realization that everything you loved is butt cheeks. I don't get sad about it because, you can't destroy Star Wars. Like, I have the Blu-rays of the first 6 movies. Disney hasn't come to my house and taken them off the shelf and broken them to pieces. They're still there. As far as I know, you can't break things. It's fine. You just, you're just aware that like James Bond is going to be, it's not going to be good from now on. So just don't watch it anymore. Just watch the old movies that you like. Like someone out there likes View to a Kill. I'm aware of that. Somebody likes View to a Kill. Or License to Kill. License to Kill is not that bad, actually. Any advice on how to implement social taboos into fantasy culture, like normalizing incest, cannibalism, etc.? Do you run the risk of putting people off? Yes, you do. Or can people just separate it? You do run the risk. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Like, you should be aware that any serious taboo you put in, the reader is going to react by viewing that as evil, wicked, or ugly. So if you have a tribe of people that are cannibals, people are going to, you do it knowing that people are going to be off-put by it. You shouldn't do it without any realization that's going to happen. If you want the good guys to be incestuous, that's not going to be a happy thing. Usually you use incest as a way to shock the audience, give the audience shock and awe. So if you guys have ever seen the movie Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, it's actually based on a Vampire Hunter D novel called Demon Death Chase, which I've read. I haven't read all the Vampire Hunter D novels, but I've read a lot of them. So the brothers are having sex with their sister, and that's revealed at a certain point in the story. And it's revealed to shock you, right? Because incest is not accepted in Japan either. It's not really accepted in any culture because it produces bad offspring. There's a biological reason for it, but they do that, and it's a way for these characters to become kind of extra weird and strange and also dislikable because they're D's competition. So I remember that specific moment. It's like when they're having sex with their sister. It's like they do it kind of like as a sex magic thing, like an Aleister Crowley sex magic thing, and it's really gross. So you will put people off from it. They won't separate it. And that's why you do it. You should do it for that reason. Bob, read such a teacher answer. Teachers say that kind of stuff. It's not that the movies are going to rot your brain. They're boring and stupid. And everybody does, you already don't like them, so do something else. Right? And I'm not making appeal to like the classics. Like English teachers are like, you should read the classics. I don't care if you read the classics. I want you to read my books. I want you to read stuff that you like. English teachers get annoyed when a kid wants to read Stephen King because they think he's bad. Meanwhile, he does what they only wish that they could do, which is publish books and make money. Yeah. Oh, an author shilling reading. If you're gonna get like all butthurt about it, then don't read the books. If you don't want to read my books, don't read them. But you're on like a writing stream. I really don't want people to read books if they're not going to like them. I want them to read books that they do like. So if you don't like fantasy books, don't read my books. It's that simple. Read someone else's books that you are going to like. But the main point is that books are where all the ideas begin. It's where all the new ideas are. It's a better use of your time. It's not Hollywood garbage. It's not politically compromised. All the things that you want from entertainment already exist in books, guys. All the big list of cultural warfare complaints. They're buying our franchises and using ownership of IP to destroy characters. Stop watching the movies. You can read books where that will not be the case. Thanks for the canon video you did recently. Can you say the same thing about the EU? Yeah, I think it's a lower level. Than the movies. It just is. I think it's more canon than Disney movies. So I think that the canon order is the movies, the EU books that Lucas approved during his tenure, as well as series like Clone Wars, right? As a little bit less official, but pretty much true. Pretty much part of the grand idea. And then below that, Lego Star Wars, and below that, the sequel trilogy, and below that, like, their comics that have to do with the sequel trilogy. The comics that literally rewrite the actions of the first movie, with, like, Leia doing all the work. I really hate how much public school ruined my perception of reading. Okay, so from Terrapar, I love this comment. I really hate how public school ruined my perception of reading. Everyone says that. I'm still trying to figure out exactly why that is, but here's my hypothesis. They make you read stuff that nobody likes. Because the curriculum is not constructed around you liking things. It's not constructed around you reading things that you like, because you don't need any impulse to do things that you like. The whole point of education is to make you do things you don't like, which is why it's compulsory. If it was actually fun or useful, then it wouldn't be compulsory, would it? Right? Nothing is compulsory what you want to do. People don't like going to prison. People don't like going to school, right? Out of all the people I've known in my entire life, I've known like one person who liked going to school. Then some people like going to college, but that's because they get to choose what they want to study. So public school, of course, it's going to make you hate it, because they design the curriculum about what they think you should like or what they think you should read rather than what you do like. So it's going to be a bunch of stuff that people in ivory towers think is important for some reason. And then they make you read it because they think it's important. They think that you'll understand it. And sometimes the books are straight up not good. Like, I don't think Great Gatsby is really a very good book. I don't think it's very well written, and I think it's more interesting if you know that F. Scott Fitzgerald is a pathetic gamma male who was constantly rejected by women, and that book is about is like a revenge fantasy. It's like his own fantasy about how he thinks women are thoughts. When you read it from that perspective, Great Gatsby is a whole lot better. It's not that the prose is bad. It's not that the dialogue is bad. It just represents a really pathetic person. And a lot of teenagers aren't going to pick up on that. They're going to have no relationship to the story unless they too are a gamma male. And then they might have some basic understanding. Or they're one of those people that aesthetically likes the 20s for some reason. But that's it. Everyone has that perspective. You have to get over it. You have to unlearn what you have learned, and then you figure out that most of what you're told is garbage. There's books you're gonna like way better than what you were told to read. The academic system hates fantasy. They hate science fiction, except for science fiction, which they think has a message that they like, which was Fahrenheit 451 in 1984 for a while. Now they probably don't like those messages as much. But they don't like spaceships. They don't like knights in shining armor. They don't like interesting stuff. They don't like murder mysteries. They don't like horror. They don't want kids reading that stuff. They think, if you go back before movies, they would say books are rotting your brain. This girl reads books all day. It's rotting her brain. They literally used to say reading would rot your brain because it was not useful. You weren't producing money. There's a video by Red Letter Media predicting what could possibly be in episode 9. It's hilarious that they predict that JJ is going to use time travel to fix problems. I don't watch any of their videos. So maybe they're accurate. I don't know. I don't really feel like predicting it, but time travel seems like an interesting one. Because here's the problem with that prediction. That assumes that they think there's problems that they need to fix with the previous movies. I think that they are just going to tell a bonkers story and it's just going to end. I don't think they're going to view any of the problems in the previous movies as problems. You have to think that would be admitting that they were wrong. They're not going to do that. They're going to barrel forward. Kathleen Kennedy wouldn't approve that. They're going to barrel forward and do a bunch of garbage and it'll end. It'll be far worse than time travel, is my opinion. It's just going to be more terrible garbage. I think it's going to be Force Ghosts. It's going to be like a Force Ghost of Palpatine. They might time travel, but it won't be to fix problems. What's a good idea for a story that plays off atheistic nihilism and Catholicism? Lord of the Rings? I'm getting back into Akira Kurosawa's films. I really love his films. Yeah. I can't think of any off the top of my head. We'll have to take more looks at like Japanese cinema in general. People like Japanese stuff because it doesn't carry the baggage. It doesn't carry this cultural war baggage. It's just kind of more honest. Especially with manga. It's drawn and written by one dude. It's his artistic vision. That's pretty cool. Speaking of foreign cinema from Daruta, consider seeing Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring by Kim Ki-duk, a beautiful Korean film. Definitely. All right, I'll check it out. I'll try to write that down after the stream. All right, let's go ahead and finish up here. CS has a 199 super chat. Have you seen Dragged Across Concrete? Zoller is thumbs up. I haven't seen it, but thank you for the suggestion. I started watching your channel regularly when you did the Shave Like Your Grandfather video. Very positive and fun. Thanks. And I actually did shave my beard off a couple weeks ago, which is like, people are like, you lost weight. I'm like, I lost weight in the beard. Is really where I lost weight. I might do a video on this, like for YouTube people, like how to make yourself lose 20 pounds in like 10 seconds. It would be put the lighting in front of your face. You look younger and thinner, cut your beard shorter, even tie your hair back, right? Like my hair is super, I got out of the shower and it's all beautiful and fluffy. I gotta have a hair tie around here somewhere. Dude with long hair cannot find elastic to tie his hair back. More at 7. More at 11. You can tie your hair back. You'll look thinner. Your shoulders will look broader. Maybe, this shirt is slightly baggy and it's black. But if I put on like a more tight-fitting red shirt that like really popped out and tied my hair back, you'd be like, oh, this guy's like, he's like in shape and stuff. You'd see my shoulders would look a lot broader. So for men, you want your shoulders to look broader, which means you tie your hair back. If you're a woman, you don't want your shoulders to look broader. You have your hair go down over them, and you'll look more feminine. That's kind of... I'll do a couple tips with that. Anyway, let me see if I can finish up here. Hardwick, I don't view it as a binary movie versus book decision. I go by a case-by-case basis. Most movies are bad, but some are great. Same with books. Sturgeon's Law. 90% of anything is crap. That's true. But you'll find that if you like genres, it's a lot easier to figure out if something sucks. And here's another thing about books. You can read 50 pages, and if it sucks, put it down. Nothing lost. There's a million more books to read. There's way more books to read than movies to watch, I think. Well, I do an analysis of Thomas Paine's Common Sense. I could. Do you like the Elder Scrolls Arena at all, the original one? I don't like it. It's very rough. It's not very fun to play, in my opinion. But it's okay. People from England not being able to understand country folk, like the old guy with the depth charge in his barn in Hot Fuzz. That's it, yes! So that's so real, though. Like, if you meet someone from England, or you are from England, sometimes it's like someone from East London, or like just the country. It's like he says he's got a license for this one. It's like, for this one? And they go in the barn, and there's like a bunch of bombs and guns inside of it. Like, oh my God. So it's kind of true, though. You know, like they had the movie, what was it, Snatch, where they had Brad Pitt talking in like this super fast, weird, pikey accent. Do you like Degs? It's like, what? Degs. Buck, buck, woof, woof. Do you like Degs? Oh, dogs. Yeah, I like dogs. You know, some people in little areas have ways of speaking that are wild. What do you think of Andrew Breitbart's assertion that politics is downstream of culture? I think that's accurate. We're just teasing you about being a teacher author. I've been sarcastic in many comments in your streams. No harm by it. Yeah, careful with sarcasm in the written word. I get that you guys are mostly joking. But like, careful about sarcasm is that it's very hard to communicate sarcasm in the written word. Sarcasm is a extrasensory, or it's a sensory thing that involves speech. So just be careful being sarcastic when you write to somebody else, because they may think you're being serious. I often do. How do I know? My channel is full of people who hate me. Or I shouldn't say my channel isn't, but like my videos are full of people who hate me. So sarcasm just blends in with people hating me. Bradbury couldn't afford college, so he educated himself on the subjects he wanted with books from his local library. It clearly worked as he became an all-time successful author. Absolutely. You do not need a creative writing degree to be an author. You don't need a music degree to be a musician. These are things that academia sells you. But there's always a skin in the game issue, right? Like if you go to a class and you're being taught by a teacher how to write, and he hasn't written anything, or he's not successful, right? It's a catch-22, actually. It's a catch-22, because if he was a really successful author, he wouldn't be in the classroom teaching you, for whatever his salary was. And if he wasn't successful, that's when he has to look for the teaching job. Right. It's not 100%. I know a lot of guys that they had the college teaching job because they only had to teach 3 classes a semester and got paid $110,000 a year to do that. Like, that's really easy. You can just do that. But kind of a catch-22 sometimes with that. It's like they're telling you how to write, but they themselves haven't figured out how to. It's funny because Red Letter Media also predict that Luke will be a Force Ghost fighting Palpatine and will be akin to Gandalf the White. I think I said that, actually. I said that in a as soon as that trailer came out, I actually said that in my trailer reaction. That it's going to be like Luke's Force Ghost and Palpatine's Force Ghost. I think I've said that. I totally believe that could happen. That's probably accurate. Snatch is amazing and hilarious. I agree. All right, we're out of time. So I'm way over time. It's almost 8:30, so it's time to say goodbye to all of you. I appreciate you watching. I really, really, really do. And I hope that you will have some use from these particular streams. I hope that this was okay. You can get whatever my books are. You can get them on Amazon or any other retailer. Barnes & Noble, just search them out. You'll find them. Crown of Sight is not, technically it's the newest one. You can pre-order. I do appreciate pre-orders. They do help me out a lot. You can pre-order the new one, Voices of the Void. But you can also get Voices of the Void for free if you join my mailing list at dvspress.com/list. And you can get that book for free and read it. It'll only take you 2 hours. So instead of watching a movie, you can read the book. And it's fun. And it's full of blood and gore and lots of disgusting things, including cannibalism. And the whole point of cannibalism is to really make people feel disgusted, not to make them happy. So anyway, check that stuff out, and I'll see you guys next time.